This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today once again we're going to be building our kingdom. It's going to have a castle, we're going to have all sorts of different territories, but this time there will be giants invading our kingdoms, and we're going to be trying to watch their footsteps and take them off our kingdom and into somebody else's. Today we're taking a look at the expansion for the smash hit, the Spiel Des Jahres winner, Kingdomino. This is called Age of Giants. Adds a fifth player and some different ways to play, some new goals. Let me show how it works. I'll see you on the other side. The expansion comes with pieces for a fifth player, the color brown. So it comes with the middle spot where you'll put your castle and the two brown meeple pawns. It comes with 6 lettered tiles, which are the giant tiles. It comes with 6 giants that have both front and backs to them. And it has 6 new numbered tiles, which pick up where the base game left off. If you remember, the base game ended at 48. This one goes from 49 to 54. We'll show you what these do later. And there's also 17 challenge tiles, which will change how each of the games are scored. It comes with this large tile dispenser with the giant on the back side. And on the other side, it opens up with a magnetic flap, so it stays shut, but it's easy to open. And what you'll do is you'll combine the tiles that I just showed you with, randomly, either the Kingdomino tiles or the Queendomino tiles. So even if you're playing Kingdomino, you'll use all 48 of those dominoes mixed with the ones from the expansion, so it'll always go to the top there, and then you'll just simply close that lid. And as you take the dominoes out of here, you'll slide them out like this, and you'll have it like this, so you'll have all the numbers face up just like that. So let's say we're about a round into it and all the pieces are on here. It's a 4-player game. The next tiles come out. Every time you put out tiles, you always put out 5. Now, you might notice that there's a letter here. Letters are always, they go in alphabetical order, and they're always lower than the lowest number. So we have things that look like this, and then we would flip them all up like normal. So it might look something like this. Now, if you're playing with 2 or 4 players, you take the middle tile out so that there's exactly the amount of tiles as the number of players. If you were playing with 3 players, you would take these 2 out, so again, it flattens the sort of tile deck, and there's only 1 for each to choose from. So you'll get to see all the tiles, but some of them will get discarded depending on the amount of players. So in this case, we have 4 players that would go like this. So let's say this player selects this one and places this in their kingdom, this one selects this one, and this one selects this one. Now this player selected the most powerful domino last tile. They're going to place this one, but now they're stuck to take the letter tile. All the letter tiles have giants on them. And here's to show you what the 6 lettered tiles look like on their front side. All of them have giants, and they're all just very basic tiles. They're not very good, so you're not going to want to take these unless it's really going to help you with a lot of crowns in that territory. So let's say this is how that kingdom looked for that red player when they took that giant tile. Now let's say they place it like this. Because I had a giant, they have to take one of those giants, and you have to cover up one of their crowns. If this giant is here on that crown at the end of the game, essentially this crown is worth nothing. So this territory went from having 2 crowns to 1, essentially costing it 3 points at this point. Now let's say on a future turn it looked like this. They're getting ready to flip these dominoes over. Notice here's a 51. It's higher than 48, so it's one of the new tiles in this expansion. And you'll notice that that 51 tile has some footprints on it. That is part of the expansion because it's the giants walking through. And let's say this player is going to end up selecting this. They'll end up placing this, but let's see what happens when they end up placing that as well. So let's say on that turn, that player takes that tile and places it just like this. And on that next turn, they ended up placing that tile with the footsteps here. When you place a tile with footsteps, if you have a giant on your board, you can take it off and you give it to any one player. That player then covers any crown of their choice on their board. And this has really just helped me out. But keep in mind, I was the most powerful tile, and I might get stuck taking another giant next turn if it comes out that way. Here are those 6 numbered tiles that start at 49 and go up. This is the front side, and they all have footsteps. I showed you what they just do. Now, they all are pretty powerful. They have lots of crowns. And so they're going to be among the most powerful when they do come out. And if you go there, you're going to have the last choice next round, and you might get stuck taking that giant. Now, you're not forced to take the giant, but most people are going to try to avoid it. So it has a sort of press your luck little mechanism in there. Now the rest of the game is played as normal, but there are these 17 different challenge tiles. Now you're going to shuffle these up and use only 2 each game, so each game is going to have 2 different ways to score. Over here you'll get 5 points for each one of these terrains that actually surround your castle, and there's one of these for the different terrains that you may see in the game. This one is similar. You'll get 5 points for each one of these squares that is in the corner of your grid, and again, there's one of those for the different terrain types. This one, you'll get 10 points for any of the types of terrains. If you have a territory that does not have a crown at all, and it's at least 5 large, you'll get 10 points. This one gives you 5 points if you built a perfect grid and you did not need to discard any tiles, so a perfect 5x5 or 7x7 if you're playing that way. This one will give you 10 points for each of either horizontal, vertical, or diagonal 3 squares in a row that all of them have crowns. You'll get 10 points. This gives you 10 points if your castle's right in the middle. That was one of the variants in the base game. This one gives you 20 points if your castle is in one of the 4 corners. And the game comes with a new set of score sheets with you score as normal, but it has the 2 different special ways to score as I just showed. And for those wondering, I was able to get everything to fit in the Queen Domino box. I have Queen Domino here. I cut the insert in half to get this to fit. I put this, the tile dispenser for the expansion here. The challenge tiles I put on the top and the bottom. I have all the different castles here. Some of them are promo ones, so I actually have more than you would normally have. And then I put all the castle foundations and all the meeples and the giants there, all the score pads there. And I placed all the rules on the top, and yes, we got it. All right, let's talk about the things I liked about this expansion. First of all, it adds a 5th player. Now, I'm normally not a big fan of when games add additional player counts with expansions. Usually that means the game is slower, it just doesn't scale well. Sometimes they add things. Well, in this case, I played it with the 5 players and it was absolutely fine. Really no noticeable difference of any downtime or anything like that with 4 players going on to 5. And with the additional dominoes that are added, you actually get to see all the dominoes. None of them get discarded when you're playing with 5 players. So 5 players works absolutely well. Usually it's not a big thing for me in expansions, but it worked fine in this one. It adds that huge tower with the giant on there. Nice touch. I had the art of the giant, and it helps you disperse those tiles. Now it's just a thing that sits on the table, but it does add to the table presence. It does add to the funness of pulling those tiles out and putting them on the table. So it's beautiful, and it does add quite a bit to the game. Of course, it doesn't do anything but disperse the tiles, but it still makes the game a cooler experience having it on the table with you. The thing I liked the best were the challenge tiles. There's, I think, 17 of them. And before in the base game, you could say, oh, well, if your castle's in the middle, you get 10 points and this and that. And that happens to be one of the goals as well. But having you choose 2 random goals out of the 17 really makes the game feel different every time you play. Now, granted, there's only, I think, 6 or 7 different unique types, and many of them repeat themselves with the different types of territories, but still, it makes you think different. Every game, certain tiles are going to be worth more than others, and it just makes you play the game differently than you normally would, and that's a thing that expansions should do. It doesn't add a whole lot of complexity, but it does add a lot of variability. Now, those giants themselves, it doesn't change the game in a huge way. It's a subtle change, but again, without making it any much more complex, it does add different ways to think of the game, because now, with the giants there, you're going to think twice about going after those powerful tiles. Because if you go down and get one of the really powerful ones with a lot of crowns on it, there's a chance, a decent chance actually, that you might be getting stuck with a giant next time, because if it comes out, most people are going to leave it for whoever is choosing last, and you're going to get stuck with it. So you had that sort of press your luck where you get a giant, and if you go to one of the bigger ones. Now, once you get that giant, you get to pick first. Well, maybe you'll get footsteps and you'll be able to go there and get rid of that giant. Another thing I like is taking those footsteps and giving the giant to someone else. But then again, you're on the footsteps, you're on the most powerful tile, you might get a giant again. So it's this interesting ebb and flow that happens with the giants and the footsteps depending on how they come out. And again, they're easy little things, but they do make a difference, and they change the way you think about the game. It makes the base Kingdomino game more challenging by discarding dominoes. Now, in the first printing of Kingdomino, the one that I have, you would actually not use all the dominoes. You would set aside a certain amount, so you didn't see all the dominoes. Now, in the newer printings, you actually get to see the dominoes, but then you discard the ones that aren't taken, and it made it more family friendly for the Spiel Des Jahres and things like that. Well, it makes it more challenging again, because you're at least going to be able to see all the dominoes come out, but with the different player counts other than 5, you're going to be discarding a certain amount of dominoes. And I like that because it makes the game harder. It makes it, and it should be more challenging as an expansion, but again, doesn't make it any more hard to understand. So it does make it more challenging, which is a good thing. It's a subtle thing that you might not have just recognized by watching my overview, but it does make a difference, that it does make the game harder. The game is compatible with Kingdomino and Queendomino. So you can use either game, and I think that's great because this expansion now you can use it with 2 different games and get the same flavor and feel of it. As you saw in the overview, I was able to fit everything in the Queendomino box. Very tight, but I got it to fit, and I love that. I know most people like to keep a lot of the boxes, especially ones like this that actually kind of go together, even in the art and this, in the front and things like that. But I was able to fit everything, and that's a positive for me. I really love this expansion. I think it did what an expansion should, which is breathe new life into a game, make it a little bit more challenging, but without adding too many more mechanisms, and this did that for me. Any negatives, the only thing I could say is that, well, because Kingdomino has printed so many, the cost to produce that is lower than normal, than if it hadn't hit the Spiel Des Jahres. So the expansion itself is actually more expensive than the base game, about $2 more, which some people might be, how do I buy an expansion that's more expensive than the game? Well, it's because so many Kingdominos have been produced, they've been able to get that cost down. But in retrospect, I don't think it's a big deal because it's still under $20, which in my case, or in most cases I would say, stores consider that an impulse purchase, $20 or less. So it is a negative that it's more expensive than the base game, but it's a little nitpick here because it's under $20 and you get to use it with 2 different games. So I still think it has a great value.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.